Good morning. My name is Teddy Manywounds, and I am so excited today to be sitting here with William BigPlume, Director of LPTS, Legislative Procedures Technical Services on Tsuut'ina Nation.
Hello, Teddy.
And William BigCrow, who is the records clerk, however you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, for Legislative Procedures Technical Services here on Tsuut'ina Nation as well.
Yeah, that's correct. I am the legislative records clerk.
Fabulous. I'm so excited to sit with these two individuals today to talk about something very important to my people, the Tsuut'ina Nation people, which is our story, really our origins. And our origins as a Dene people on Treaty 7 territory are somewhat unique to the region, somewhat unique to our people, and have very much been the backbone into my understanding of who we are as people, but also where we come from and where we're going and our definite resiliency. What I'm speaking about, as would be known to Tsuut'ina people and was corrected by William BigPlume before this interview, is our separation story. Now, I can go into what that is for you, but because I have two fabulous guests here with me today, I'm going to ask William BigPlume to update us, the listeners, on what that is. William?
Thank you, Teddy. You are correct. The separation story is the telling of our people and how we, the Tsuut'ina Nation, the Dene-speaking, derived from the Dene-speaking nation, arrived here of where we are, southwest of Calgary, Alberta, or as we like to say, Calgary is northeast of Tsuut'ina Nation.
Those guys over there.
Those guys over there across the fence. Right. Our people were nomads, and we were traveling. And before we get into the story itself, I did want to have a little brief history. That the separation story comes from multiple different versions of the separation story. Some elders have one variation, while other elders have another variation. So there's no true correct telling of what the separation story is. It's just the tellings of our elders, of our knowledge keepers, of what the separation story is.
Which is so many different things, and I think understanding that the separation story is so different to everyone else, the basis of what I can understand our separation story to be is a story about resiliency, a story about breaking through, a story about survival, a story about strength. And the beauty in stories is that it is malleable to everyone's understanding, or as we like to say, to everyone's spirit, to everyone's knowledge, to everyone's family. It makes, I think, all of our stories important in that we are an oral and traditionally an oral and audible teaching people. And stories, I think, come with, as well, their own mix of enthusiasm and inspiration, because that's something else that I've always experienced when hearing the story from different elders and from different people. And with that, I've always taken into account all of the people of our nation and how that makes us all really not only important, but it makes us all connected with one another. William BigCrow, I have grown up with your family almost my whole life, and I've always felt such a connection to your family because of where we came from, and wanted to ask you, what is the separation story to your understanding then in your family, or to yourself?
Our separation story, as told from my grandpa's side, was in the mid 1700s, 1600s. Our people, our ancestors, they were traveling across northern Alberta. We were told close to the Edmonton region, and they were traveling south, migrating for food, and they were coming across a large frozen lake, and the chiefs were trying to get all the tribes to hurry across the lake because they could tell the ice was thin. It was the seasons were getting warmer, and it was time to go back down south. One woman was crossing with her own child on her back. We were told that it was an elder. We were told from other people that it was a mother carrying the baby. But I was told from my grandpa that it was an elder carrying a child on her back, a baby. And the baby boy began to cry for an object that was sticking out of the frozen lake. And this frozen object that was sticking out of the ice kind of appeared like a horn, kind of like a cup or a horn cup, and the boy wanted it really bad, and he started to cry and beg his grandma for it, and then finally the grandma reluctantly gave into it, and then she went and she started hacking away at this horn without knowing or considering what the horn could have been, and the object began to break through the ice, and it was attached. It was a horn of a water serpent, a water beast, and broke through the ice, and our people were separated from the north of the lake and the south of the lake, and that's how our DNA came to be remained down here in the south. I believe the Tsuut'ina word for the water creature was Taslani. It's told by my grandpa. As told by my grandpa, Harley Crowchild.
I think it's so important that we hear these stories from our elders, but also that we interpret them into applicable knowledge for us today. That's inspiring and imaginary and amazing. And even the language. I know what I sometimes not struggle with, but sometimes what I do in my own ideology of the separation stories, I put my feet in the moccasins of our people to really feel. Can you we all imagine, like, I mean, we wake up and our house is cold and I think we're all a little pissed off, or there's no hot water and we're mad. And that's just how far we've come in this world. And for our people at that time to be in moccasins in winter, and the resiliency and the strength of following buffalo, and of honing and really keeping in the practices and the teachings, I find it so inspirational, but also as a source of strength and determination to continue doing what it is that we do and how we do it.
I liked your terminology of putting myself in their moccasins. That's great terminology, because again, thinking about the separation story, and the as Will BigCrow had mentioned, that it's either a mother, in some tellings it's a mother carrying her child, and right, I think we all take for granted, we can all hop in our vehicles, go down the QE2, and we'll be in Edmonton in 3 minutes, or 3 hours.
Yeah.
Whereas
not yet, William.
Not 3 minutes yet. No, we don't have those bullet trains.
Our bullet train's not there yet, but we're coming. Treaty 6, we're coming.
We're coming. But when our people would travel these vast distances by foot, right? And our mothers carry babies, newborns, babies, for a long, long time, but to carry them across for days on end to follow the food and the resources that they need to help sustain not just themselves, but their children, their next generation, right? To have those teachings and to think about what it was like at that time for them not to have, what we take for granted here in modern day society, which is, vehicles, heating, proper footwear, proper clothing.
Just the amenities.
Just the amenities that we have today, right? What I also liked hearing from yourself, Teddy, was the stories and how they impact us. And from what I remember being taught about the story it was also a teaching to our people, right? To not give in to temptation. That was the one thing that I remember our elders telling us, that the woman, right, gave in to her child, or to the child who was begging and asking and pleading and wanting this toy, when normally our elders would just keep going and keep moving forward and ensuring, like, not making our children too, in a modern term, spoiling the child. But right, this woman gave in to temptation of wanting to give her child exactly what they're asking for, and they did give in, and they broke through the ice to get that object from the sea serpent. From my some of the stories I remember growing up, is the differences between what the creature was in the ice. I've heard sea monster, I've heard sea beast, I've heard a giant elk that was twice the size of a buffalo, right? Or a moose, or a bear that's just huge. And then the separation, once it was free, it separated our people, and that was a learning curve to not give in to temptation, because something bad may happen, like you lose the connection between your family. And that's in a sense what happened to our people. We were separated from the majority of our Dene speaking brothers and sisters of the Dene nation, and we continued southwards towards where we are located now, which is again Calgary is northeast of our nation here on Tsuut'ina.
I think you both said fabulous, poignant things, and I think today, in today's world, we all three of us work in I work in justice, and you both work in legislation. And those are both very heavy topics, filled with a lot of very heavy nuances in regard to our people. And one of those topics that is currently on the interest of all of our people is the topic of our missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and people. And our stories, separation story or any story, I think are meant to teach us a resilience, but also I think are meant to teach us moments of caution and meant to, as you said, keep us in line with a much more responsible teaching or a much more responsible understanding of the world around us, whether that's being wantonly spoiled or disregarding the collective, or thinking individually about yourself and getting yourself into possibly more harm when we as a camp, as we've always been, have been closer together. From these stories and from these stories of caution, I oftentimes, with the work that we do, look towards that and apply it into knowledge that is applicable today. Whether that is, again, thinking about the collective and about something that comes to mind is the sobriety movement. People being sober curious, or people living that lifestyle. Something else that I think today separates all of us from one another, but also connects us, is phones. Phones are something that are so easily distracting, but also so easily connecting. So it's a really interesting paradox, but it's something that, looking at missing and murdered and anything in the justice system that is making a call to action, do you feel that these stories today, if brought back into the forefront in a way that I think can be also into adults, because as adults I sometimes I haven't heard this story since I left to New York City. Do you, either one of you, an open question, believe that our traditional teachings have resonance in the contemporary lives that we all live today, including our separation story as Tsuut'ina Nation people?
I believe they do. I think it's important to keep these stories alive and going, because like you said, you haven't heard the separation story since you left from New York, and same with me. I haven't necessarily told the separation story since I've been in elementary, and we were taught like the story in elementary, and then we would do it in a play. We would get dressed up as like the water beast. Somebody would pretend to be the grandma and the baby, and then we would reenact.
Did you also get that?
No.
What? I didn't get that. I wish I had the costume.
We would reenact that at Chilla, and we had to make the horned beast out of like paper mache and everything. We really went all out.
Where are these costumes?
Hopefully somewhere still at Chilla.
If anyone out there is listening in Chilla, please, if you have these costumes, keep them, and I will follow up with that. But sorry, not to interrupt. That's amazing.
Yeah. Anyways, I think it's important to keep those stories alive and going well, because you imagine if they were still told like that today, like in a play format, where like with children still, being the ones that kind of keep the history and the oral language going like that.
As an adult, I would pay money to not only see that, but to experience that, because I think it has a lot. And thank you so much. But I know, William BigPlume, your family is not only so pragmatic, but so resoundingly important from the work that your uncle Sanford has done. And I'm sure that from the work that you do, so many places where our stories could be applicable to the modern day understanding of life. And from where you come from, perhaps you can speak to that and speak to the resonance of our traditional teachings into today's life, and how maybe bringing those back, but bringing back those understandings. Do you find that there's do you see the importance of that for us today?
Yeah, 100%. I see the importance. Even as Will mentioned, Will BigCrow mentioned that there's a teaching that at a very young age of our creation story, and our elders always mention that it's a cautionary tale for not just our young women or our women, but for our people as a whole, to not give in to temptation and not to be like victim blaming or anything, but for our missing and murdering Indigenous women, right? It's that cautionary tale of, if you're thinking twice about something, maybe follow that first instinct of not doing it, because again, not to victim blame, but just ensuring you're in the safest way that you are today in today's standards, because it's our people, our women have had very huge struggles in life based off of the trauma or the intergenerational trauma that we've gone through, and these stories, these tellings we have from our knowledge keepers are always, to have a cautionary tale or a cautionary example of what can go wrong, and for our people to be aware of that in today's modern society, gives them a leg up on our non-Indigenous friends there across the fence, who don't have these continuation of stories passed on through the generations.
Mm-hmm. How does the separation story impart, or does it impart any sort of understanding to either one of you individually as to what it is, and I'm quoting with my fingers a quote, what it is to be a Tsuut'ina person? Now, in asking that question, there is no right way to be a Tsuut'ina person. There's no wrong way to be a Tsuut'ina person. However, we do have, as told by our elders, ways of knowings and traditional teachings that I do believe, even from my own standpoint, shape me as a Tsuut'ina person who goes into this world. I'm always a Tsuut'ina person. And many times first and foremost, and the separation story for me has always been a foundation of what that means based upon resiliency and based upon, and as thank you for William BigCrow, or BigPlume, sorry, illuminating that, possibly cautionary, to make me think twice about possibly making a decision that could have ramifications for everyone. And that's where it lies for myself. Has the separation story given you all the foundations of what it is to be a Tsuut'ina person, or is there matter in that for either one of you?
Do you want to take this on first, Will? Or
Yeah, I believe there's a lot to take away from the separation story, like how you said the perseverance. Could you imagine having to walk all those miles through like northern Alberta
and they
the
didn't
cold
even
and
have
moccasins?
sealskin moccasins.
They didn't
Will
even have sealskin.
BigPlume, Will BigPlume designed some fabulous sealskin stuff during pandemic. So I'm looking at him and thinking, I could have used a pair of your shoes, sir, if that was then.
if it was back then.
But you were saying, sorry.
That's okay. A matter of what I was speaking is that we're people of perseverance, of hardiness, like we're strong-willed, like we're able to survive, and like these are all virtues and characteristics you can see from or hear from the story at least. And I'd like to think that retelling those stories helps reinstate those values and those virtues in us as First Nations people, as Dene people, as Tsuut'ina.
Very, very well said. For me, the separation story is, again, as Teddy mentioned, there's no wrong answer of what it means to be Tsuut'ina. But in regards to the separation story, for my Tsuut'ina identity and self-identifying as a Tsuut'ina, I'm going to get a little real here on the podcast. I don't refer to myself as a member of the Dene Nation. I refer to myself as most Tsuut'ina people in Sarsi, as we were formerly known Sarsi people. Yeah. That's what we refer to ourselves as Sarsi or Tsuut'ina people that come from the Dene dialect nation. Yeah. To my knowledge, I don't know anyone who refers to themselves as Dene or as Dene first, then Tsuut'ina. So for me, the separation story really really is the beginning of our identity as Tsuut'ina individuals, because we were part of the Dene Nation. We were part of that huge group of nomadic people that went all the way from northern Canada all the way down to the States in southern Arizona, as far as central Mexico. Right, we have quite a huge population of nomadic Dene speaking individuals. But for our people of Tsuut'ina, for me, the separation story really is the beginning of the telling of our story, because that led us to come to Treaty 7 territory. We would arrive on the southwest end of the Elbow River. That's where we had our Elbow River camp. That's where our leadership set up camp. Again, being a little real, is people will always refer to where Treaty 7 is as traditional Blackfoot territory. And the Blackfoots will always say that, and there's no disrespect to the Blackfoots, but now we are here. We establish ourselves here as well, coming down from our original territories, our original wanderings with the Dene people, and we arrived here and we settled in this land. So it's now not just traditionally Blackfoot territory, but it is now traditionally Tsuut'ina, traditionally Sarsi territory, as we've established ourselves here for more than 7 generations, for quite longer than that. And again, the separation story really started that off, right? Our people were unfortunately separated from their huge Dene Nation, and we traveled down, and we've decided, and I don't want to say the word settled, but we were able to arrive at this land where we are now. And this land is really where the Tsuut'inas have been and will be now for, they say 7 generations back and then 7 generations forward, and we want to ensure that, especially with what me and Will do in regards to legislation, right? Our legislation is to protect the next generations, right? Just as it protected the former generations.
Absolutely. It's something really interesting that we that you said was within the separation story, we're separated from the large people of the Dene Nations. And you're right, I've never referred to myself as Dene first. I'm from Tsuut'ina. And I've always, when I've ever run into anyone else who's Dene, of course feeling a connection with them because I'm from Tsuut'ina Nation, but I've always come Tsuut'ina first and Dene later. And being from Tsuut'ina, I think, is a very unique experience that we can all sort of agree on, in that we're also this beautiful, wonderful melting pot of first Tsuut'ina culture, but I also get to experience from people who have Blackfoot mothers and fathers, people who have mothers and fathers from different nations. Tsuut'ina is one of the places where there's a distinct identity in being Tsuut'ina, and if you know, you know. It's very difficult to explain, but it's difficult to explain at any time someone's entire existence or an existence of a people. But one of the things that I've loved about being from Tsuut'ina that I think the separation story does highlight is not only our resiliency, but our ingenuity, and that we were separated to this place we now call home. And from even when I was a kid, seeing how much we have accomplished and how much that we build for one another. The separation story also tells me a lot about the collective and how much we all look out for one another, because when we were separated from those large nations, all we had was one another. And the stories change, and the numbers of people change, but I was told, from my understanding of the story, it was less than 200 people, which in that time is not a lot of individuals to claim as an identifiable group of people. And I think our chiefs did a fabulous job, because I love being from Tsuut'ina. I don't know anything else. And from building that, it's really taught me an understanding of again, how admirationally resilient we are, but also how ingenious we are in just creating a home out of nothing. And perhaps both of you have seen it more than I have in legislation, in that, could you tell me, in the past 10 years, after we have built all this economy, coming from the purview of a separation story, does it give you sort of the same resonance of pride in our ingenuity and prowessness? And also, is it an example of our people's resiliency to determine our own path forward, including what you both do in legislation.
No, those. Sorry if I can just jump in there,
Please.
William BigCrow. No, that's a great question. That's a great wondering, because the big thing is you mentioned 10 years ago, and you've also threw out numbers there of 200 citizens originally when we were separated. Again, the numbers may change, the locations.
I once heard it was
may-
80.
Yeah. It's always the essence.
The tiniest amount of people.
The essence of the story will remain the same. There's
Absolutely.
not a lot amount of people, a few hundreds, couple tens of people who might have made it, but the resilience of our people as Tsuut'ina people. I really love those numbers you threw out, because you said 200, you said 10 years. If I just go back 5 years, we were already 200 people up from 5 years ago.
Wow.
In 2017, in 2015, we were at 1,400 citizens. That's 1,400 citizens over the age of 18.
Wow.
Now, today, I know for a fact we're over 1,600 individuals at 2022, and that's our elector citizens that are over the age of 18. So there is a jump in just the past 5 years of 14 to 1,600 individuals. So that's 200 people that have turned 18 in the past 5 years, right? Which is a huge number of, formerly we had 200 citizens here in Calgary and on Tsuut'ina Nation back in the I want to say mid 90s, 1960s. 1970s, we only had about 500 citizens, something like that.
Yeah, when Grandma Muriel came from Saddle Lake, there was 248 people in 1952.
There we go.
Yeah.
Right, those numbers don't lie, and that's, as you say, we've come from a lot of different nations. We have a beautiful, I want to say, essence of all different nations. Because my background is Tsuut'ina Cree, right? My mother's Cree,
Mohawk Tsuut'ina.
Mohawk Tsuut'ina, right? We always identify as Tsuut'ina first. I think we always
first and
do.
foremost, yeah.
First and foremost, and then we'll identify our next nation that we've come from. And there are some members on the citizens who are Tsuut'ina parents, but still have some essence of Blackfoot, some essence of Stoney Nakoda or the Lakota, the Sioux.
And I think we're built on our people.
We're built on our people.
And I don't just say that Tsuut'ina Dene, I say Indigenous First Nation people all across Canada and America, and sometimes even the world, depending on which family you talk to. Tsuut'ina is built on all of our people. And I think for me, it's beautiful and wonderful because I don't know if anyone's ever been to Tsuut'ina, but I personally think our people are beautiful people, probably from all the beautiful blood that's come into our nations from all these different nations to create just this mosaic of fabulous, wonderful, intelligent individuals.
Kind of going back to all the people that, we come from. We also come from Dene people.
Exactly.
And my partner, who is from the Northwest Territories, and there are the Dene, the Northwest Territories Dene from up north of Alberta, they have their own story of us as well, which was intriguing, which I found to be very exciting when I first heard of it. Because my partner was here and she heard our separation story, and she kind of had a good little unique look of like, oh yeah, that's how your story is.
Yeah.
And I asked her, I'm like, well, what did your elders say about us who are Dene speaking of in the south of Alberta? And it was a really, really blunt answer of, you guys have a beautiful separation story. We banished you.
Well, here we are, guys.
And she'll have that running joke of, I'll banish you again.
I don't know if we should be proud of that and thankful, or we should be like, God, what did we do?
Were we that bad?
We won't go
We
ask.
won't go into that.
We were suspended from the north.
Put in the timeout, and then we just never came back.
They said, go see if you can be on Blackfoot territory. We said, all right, we're not coming back.
There's some beautiful work done in the Northwest Territories. Their consultation is amazing. I would really love for our provincial standards, because they have territorial standards up there, and their government, with regards to the territorial government, is about 80% Indigenous. So they have a lot of consultation with their government counterparts, and their government supports their consultation, their history, their archiving, and they've actually have in their museum, I think it was a 20 or 50 year project
Yeah.
to find the Dene migration lines and where the Dene actually migrated through the Northwest Territories. Unfortunately, I think they have more, but they just have the Northwest Territory trails, the migration trails. Whereas they did have some of southern Alberta. It goes further, right? The Dene go as far as we've mentioned earlier in this interview.
The Navajos.
All the way to the Navajos,
Yeah.
all the way to down to the Aztecs and to the Incas, where we have relations with them. I believe, but I know we do have people in the Central America, Mexico. But the Dene in Northwest Territories were able to develop a land map that shows their trail migration of their people. And I believe with one of our citizens here on Tsuut'ina, we were able to identify which migration trail we come from that developed our Dene language and where our people's migration trail came from.
And that's that's so brilliant for specific land claims. I know that the governments are always trying to determine what land, whose land, how the land was. There's so many determinations that are made under the eyes of governments and law and legislation. So I think not only is that brilliant, but it's a point of authoritation. It's a point of authorship to say where we came from and how we got here. To not claim because the land was originally ours, that doesn't necessarily need to be made a claim, but to make an authorization towards that claim. And but before we moved on, William BigCrow, I did want to ask you about if you wanted to speak on sort of the resilience of our people coming from those small numbers, 80 to 200, to where we are today, and what that experience has been like for you in regards to resiliency and building, and just your own personal experience as a Tsuut'ina Nation person from that separation sort of to now where we are here, even in this fabulous boardroom.
So I think our resilience is one that's based on perseverance. Like I said from before, like we were able to endure like all not just the weather, but like all of the elements and all of like the environment they must have had to endure over the hundreds of years to get from northern Alberta all the way down to here to southern Alberta towards Calgary. We've been able to keep ourselves going just from strength and persevering together as a nation, and it's something I see still to this day, like in the past 10 years, being able to develop on our nation, like William has stated, like not only have our numbers gone up, but like our population has grown since, and that is based off of perseverance and strength and resilience in itself, because we're able to still I guess exist as a culture and as a people, and we were able to kind of help all of those characteristics and virtues come to life through the many bits of development that have happened over the last 10 years. So we have like our brand new sportsplex, we have our own hotel now, we have the casino, we have our new gas bar. These are things that are based off our own willingness and strength to persevere, and that's something that's, I guess, been demonstrated over the last couple hundred years, and let alone the past 10 years of our nation developing more and more. And I think it's just something that's really beautiful for us.
Yeah. Something that has been developed on this nation that I recently was up in Saddle Lake, and even when I go to where's another nation that I was Kainai, our road system. Mm-hmm. Our road system is, we also build roads, which one thing that I think we're a little bit spoiled on here is how, even though our road systems could use work, but do you remember when we were kids and we would say, if a truck doesn't last a year on the res, it's not built tough. And that was because if anyone's ever been to other reservations, the road infrastructure, the fresh water infrastructure is just so below the standard of what should be standard that you can't even keep a vehicle without having to spend paycheck after paycheck after paycheck. So it's great that we don't ruin cars on the first day home, but we're an example. Whereas I really can't wait for other nations together. Sorry, I cut off William BigPlume. Please.
No, it was going back onto what you were mentioning of, if a truck doesn't last a year, it's not built for what we used to say Indian roads, but now First
exactly.
Native roads,
Res roads.
Res roads. One of our sayings growing up too, and what I heard when we were kids is like, if they're swerving, they're on the res.
Yeah.
They're not drunk. They're paying attention to the roads.
roads.
If they're driving straight, those people are the drunk drivers because they're hitting every pothole and every ditch.
Yeah. When I was a kid,
road.
do you guys remember Star Wars Episode 1 where they're like in those cruisers and they're like cruising? No lie. When I was a kid in my first car, that's what I imagined driving on the roads. It's like, because you have to miss all the obstacles. And do you remember N64 when the game came out? I was killer in that game, but I told everyone when I went to like house parties, and they were like, "Why are you so good at this?" I was like, "Because I grew up driving on the res." And honestly,
having to dodge the potholes.
And I had a Honda Civic, so it was like you're 2 inches off the ground already.
Yeah.
So I was already like, my friends were like Alice in Heaven Fire way up west, or Delan if I ever had to go and visit her, which is William BigCrow's sister. The roads where I was like, oh my god, it's like Star Wars Space Cruiser, because of course my Honda Civic would just fall into a hole. That's how big they used to get. Yeah, and Francis Starlight used to tell me when I used to work at the gas bar, we used to hear built Ford tough, and she was like, okay, we'll see. Because it can't, if it's built Ford tough, is it going to last? Before we closed our conversation today, though, and thank you both so much for that, it not only illuminated me in that I haven't heard the separation story for years, and here's how long it's been since I've heard it. Literally before we started this, I was calling it the creation story until William BigPlume was like, I don't know where you got that, but that's not Tsuut'ina. So you've been away from home for a minute.
For all of our listeners who are listening into this podcast, we actually have our separation story on our Tsuut'ina website.
There you go.
Just Google up Tsuut'ina, we'll have our homepage website, and there has our story in one of the, I believe, descriptions on our home webpage.
Yes.
And it'll have one of the readings, one of the stories we actually have of our separation story. Again, some of our elders, some of our knowledge keepers have alternate versions, but that's one of our generalized versions we still tell today.
Absolutely. And if you all look in the description of this podcast onto the website, there will be information on how to get in touch with Legislative Procedures Technical Services, specifically one of the wills. Before this interview as well, we were calling it Teddy and the Wills, and I was like, well, we're not a band. We're not even a band. We are a First Nation, and we're First Nations people. Before I closed out this interview, though, I did want to say thank you and wanted to give both of you a chance to close us off however you both saw fit. I'll first, Will BigCrow, did you want to leave any closing comments, any closing, leave us with something to think about? Anything to plug even?
No, I just wanted to give a big thank you to Teddy Manywounds for being able to interview us, for being able to teach us the bits of how to do a podcast and everything. Very informative. I want to thank you to all our listeners and everyone who comes out to our engagement sessions. And just want to let you know that if you ever have any questions, you can feel free to come visit us on the 3rd floor, the band office. Our doors are always open. Thank you. See you, guys.
See you, Scots. Thank you, Teddy Manywounds. Thank you to all of our listeners. As far as closing, right, we have a beautiful separation story. We have a beautiful nation. All are welcome to stop by our band office, our museum, to learn a little more of what Tsuut'ina Nation is here southwest of Calgary, or, Calgary's northeast of us. Yeah. Thank you for the time today. Nadia Nasane. We'll talk to you all later.
Thank you all so much for listening. For more information on Legislative Procedures Technical Services, please look into the description of this podcast, and we will have links for you to get in touch with either of the wills. As well, please check out Tsuut'inanation.com. I'm not sure of the exact IP address, but if everyone Googles Tsuut'ina Nation, you'll see our brand new beautiful website. As well, recently launched is a Tsuut'ina Nation app, as well as an app on the iPhone store for our Tsuut'ina Nation language, if anyone was interested in teaching themselves how to say hello, or more importantly, thank you. See you, Scots. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you to both the wills here in Tsuut'ina Nation. This has been Teddy and the Wills signing off on you guys. Talk to you later.